Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Mindful Investor Podcast Show. I'm your host, Steve Rosenberg, head of investor education for Mind Property Management. Mind is a property management company that is in 19 markets nationwide. They help you manage your asset. They help you with everything from tip to tip, whether you want to help find a property, place a tenant, manage the asset. They've got a 3-tiered pricing program. Again, it's all investor-based, here to help you and to help you become a better investor based on your strategy, based on your goal. The reason we have this show is I want to bring on people that are experts in the industry, people that know what they're doing, that are actually not just talking, but are in the heat of battle. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, depending on what's going on in the cycles, and kind of hear from the front lines of what's going on. I know I am someone who's definitely dealing with day-to-day pluses and day-to-day minuses. As we all know, if anyone's really in this industry, they know it's not a rainbow day every day. Some days, it can get dark and it can be a little scary. A lot of unknown, uncharted territory I think we all are going through. And the guest I have today, a very good friend of mine, Bobby Sharma, who is, we'll say, in the belly of the beast right now in California, San Francisco. I mean, you're in it right now. So, Bobby, first of all, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate you being here, buddy.
You bet. Thank you, Steve. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to connect with you, and happy to share our war stories. So, yeah, absolutely glad to be here.
So, Bobby, let's first start by telling everyone just a little bit about your background, kind of who you are, where you came from, your humble beginnings, and let's start with that to give everyone a baseline about Bobby.
Absolutely. So, I'm an immigrant, born in India, grew up in Africa, and when I was in junior high, I studied American history, and I just got fascinated with George Washington, Jefferson, and a lot of my teachers were Americans, so I always dreamed of being in the United States. And so when I was 18, I begged my parents to let me come to college here. So luckily, they let me. They gave me enough money for the first year. So I ended up in Mobile, Alabama, University of South Alabama, and got my degree in computer science. And luckily, times were good, so I was able to get a job. My company sponsored me for my green card, but then when I was in computer science, I always knew I had to be in Silicon Valley. I had heard of this mythical place called Silicon Valley, and that's where all the tech companies were. So shortly from Mobile to LA to the Bay Area. So 30 years in the Bay Area. This is home. But very, very lucky to have been here and seen some of the amazing growth. And Mind is a neighbor. They're based in Oakland, so about 12 miles from where I live. So
great. So let me ask you this: in growing up in different worlds and different cultures, was real estate ever on the horizon? Coming to Silicon Valley, was real estate at some point going to be in your world, or how did you transition from a Silicon Valley to the real estate world?
Yeah. So very interestingly, yeah. So real estate I was 24, and I was renting a room from a gentleman in Southern California, Riverside, actually, and he. So I was single. And instead of renting an apartment, I ended up renting a room. And anyway, long story short, my attorney, my immigration attorney said, listen, you are going to be working for this company for a long time because it's going to take 4 or 5 years for you to get your green card. So, behave yourself, don't get in any trouble, do whatever they tell you, but stay with the company. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to be in Riverside for 5 years. So long story short, the gentleman that I was renting the room from, he ended up crowding the house a little bit too much. He went a little bit too aggressive on the house hacking side. So one day I was just driving and I saw a for sale sign at a house. There was a Century 21 for sale sign. Went inside, I was just curious. I had no idea that I could buy a house, but I had some time to kill. So just walked around and talked to the realtor, and she said, "Yeah, I said, "I'm an immigrant. Can I get a loan?" She goes, "Why not? I'm sure you can apply here." So what I did was I house hacked, but it wasn't something that my parents talked about. It wasn't something we talked about in the at the dinner table. I came from a very traditional, conservative Indian family, so they never talked about money. As long as you got good grades, that's all that mattered to my parents. But I realized one thing, Steve, very early on, that I needed to supplement my income. I wasn't making a ton of money back then. So what I did was I took a 3-bedroom house, got 2 roommates, um, and boom, my mortgage was paid for. So I was house hacking. This is 1989.
Okay.
So yeah.
So from that transition of, a lot of people get into real estate kind of as a backwards way of, there's the interesting thing about real estate is there's no rules. You can come in any way you want. There's no on ramp. You can jump fences, you can climb walls, you can come on ramps. There's many different ways. You came in through a lot of standard ways of doing that.
Yeah.
And then how did you progress as all of a sudden you became an investor? You got involved in Turnkey. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So I had a great job here in the Bay Area from the .com days. I worked for a very stable company for 11 years. And then I went to a startup, and that was the wake up call. I went to a very I thought it was a well funded startup, but it was mismanaged and all that. But one day I found myself out of work, and it
Okay.
was a really horrible feeling. But being in Silicon Valley, it was 2010, around 2010, and the market had really dropped. So I said, look, I'm out of work, so I'm going to spend my time learning something new. Maybe I need to broaden my mind a little bit. So I started going to real estate meetups, and that's when I started learning about real estate. So I went to the auction. I was just curious,
Mhm.
but long story short, I ended up buying a house at the auction, and but where it got really interesting was, being kind of, I'm not a big like a gambler, right? But I always knew that. So stock market was sort of a gamble for me,
Sure.
but I knew real estate wasn't going anywhere. Like people always needed a place to live. People, it was always considered a stable investment, right?
Right.
So that's when I doubled down on real estate when I was out of work, and I'm like, this if I did my Excel forecast, and I said if it appreciates 3% a year, and I can increase rents maybe 2-3% a year, in a few years I could really pay off or do well with this property.
Mhm.
So I bought the house in San Jose. The only thing was I kind of kicked myself for not buying more, but it was
Everyone normally does, right?
everybody,
Everybody does.
everybody. But it was doom and gloom. Right? You remember,
Sure.
Steve, when you turned on the TV, it was all about strategic defaults and
Yeah.
people going bankrupt. And
It's hard to say I'm going into this and I'm going to be wealthy when you see everybody running away, which, being a contrary investor, that actually is now that, you and I have done this and we've seen these cycles, those are actually indicators now that is where you want to go.
that's where you
It's
want to be.
hard to, it's hard to get over the mental negative
Yeah,
self-talk,
yeah,
right? That we all have when you go,
yeah,
all these people are very smart. I'm
yeah,
watching the news. I'm watching these bankers. Everybody's running to the hills.
yeah,
Why would I run in? But
yeah,
in hindsight, as we know, as the founders of Mind and other people have done,
yeah,
that is in the where wealth was actually
yeah,
created in,
yeah,
in massive amounts.
yeah.
So if we fast forward now, you've done a lot of business. You got involved in a lot of turnkey operations and stuff like that. Can you explain to people what turnkey is so that they understand?
Literally, it's the simplest way to generate a lot of wealth without taking on a lot of headaches. So turnkey, I love turnkey models,
Yeah.
and I as I've got a small turnkey company, and I'm a partner with Mind, but I truly believe in it. So if you're especially for the people on the coast, the challenge was, how do you invest remotely? So a lot of people can't afford to buy in the Bay Area or LA or New York, but they got to get into the game, right? They got to get into investing. So just like Mind, Mind was extremely wise when they came in. They picked up a bunch of assets when they were highly discounted, so we started offering turnkey properties to our investors in through my meetup. But we were buying in places like Kansas City, St. Louis, Huntsville, Alabama, um, where things were cash flowing, right? Big
Yeah. So,
property. Yeah,
if you don't mind,
yeah.
just so I can interject a question, like for people that are trying to understand turnkey, why would that make more sense to buy there than another side? Like, what was the indicator or the reason that you chose those cities, and why did it make sense as a turnkey operation?
Yeah. So it's a very good question. So I looked at, I actually flew out to Kansas City. So I looked at the neighborhoods. I studied the demographics, right?
Okay.
Is the population, is there a stable population? Are people moving in? What's the unemployment? What's the crime rate? What is the rent versus price ratio, right? That was very important. We call it the 1% rule now, but back then nobody said the 1% rule. But it was just, what's your ROI?
ROI.
What's your cash on cash ROI at the end of the day? But one of the big advantages of turnkey properties is somebody has already rehabbed it. Somebody has put a tenant in it. It's passed inspections. It's going to appraise. You're going to get a loan on it. So it's literally, you could be sitting in the Bay Area and being buying anywhere in the country, or you could be sitting in New York, Boston, doesn't matter. You could be buying in the cities where Mind operates, where you've already done. So Mind has done a lot of the homework for you, right? So you're not out there trying to find a fixer, or
Right.
or a contractor, or whatever. They've done all of the heavy lifting for you, right? So Mind has gone in, they've identified the properties, they've fixed those up. It's going to pass inspection, it's going to get appraised, it's in a B or whatever neighborhood that you want to be in, because you offer so many options. You provide property management, right? So I always say that buying and selling a house is the easiest thing you can. As a real estate investor, buying and selling is easy, right? It's the it's the it's the 10, 15, 20 years that you're going to own that property. That's the most important part. And your property management company is the most important relationship you're going to have, right? Because without a good property management company, you're going to have a lot of unpleasant surprises. I have text messages from yesterday. Somebody's having a problem in Wichita, Kansas, with their property manager. But when you have a professional company like mine that has property management in its DNA, right? So it's not some guy out of a garage running a property management company on the side, right? Mine is, plus you love, you've got technology, you've got so many processes that people can check off. Like, you got pictures, videos, whatever, contracts, so I think a professional property management company from a turnkey operator, and you're a busy professional in the Bay Area, right? You're a director or a VP at a medical tech company, whatever company, or in finance on Wall Street, doesn't matter. You can put a small down payment and then get cash flow out of it. So
Well, I
that's
think,
what I've. Yeah.
and I think what's important for people to realize, if you're thinking of turnkey, it's doing a couple things. Number one, it's giving you back your time, because your time, as you just said, as you alluded to, your time is worth something.
Very important.
Now, let's just say that someone who's a high level VP, or they're just working every day, they live in the Bay Area or Los Angeles or somewhere, and they say, you know what, I've got a 9 to 5, I have a career, but you know what, I'm gonna take some time and I'm gonna block off a week and I'm gonna go to Kansas City and I'm just gonna do it myself. Well, my question back to them is, what makes you experienced enough to even know what you're doing? So just because you create the time, it doesn't mean that you actually should be the one doing it. I mean, if you don't know local ordinance laws, you don't know fair housing discrimination. We won't even talk about the whole COVID rules that have just come into play that are now moratoriums and this and that. So do you really want to get tangled up in one of the highest sued industries in real estate of being a landlord, when you could sub that out to someone and you can buy it? And again, I think that you had said a couple things in there that I think is important for people to realize, is that buying real estate is mathematics. It's ROI, it's a return on your time and a return on your money. So you have to ask yourself, could you get a higher return going and doing it yourself? Well, you could. You could also make it a lot worse. And I think what you're buying is, when you're buying turnkey, my perception, and you and I know many people that have been very successful doing it as well as selling them, is that you're buying it's like buying a franchise.
Yep.
Maybe your returns are not as high, but you're getting a consistent product.
Yep.
And that, I think, is what's the most valuable thing about a turnkey is, you're not going to swing for the fences and hit this home run that you're going to get a $500,000 house for 50,000, but you know what you're getting, and you're working with a reputable company like yours, obviously. And because of that, you're getting a known entity. I mean, that's my perception of turnkey.
Absolutely, 100%. So look, it's how do you value your time, and are you an expert at rehabbing? Now, for example, I wouldn't, if I had to do surgery, would I go and learn how to do surgery on myself? No. Or if I needed to repair my car, there was a problem in the engine or in the transmission, I'm not going to suddenly go and become a mechanic to fix my car, right? That's not the point. So there are professionals like mine where you have identified the properties, you know all the legal complexities that you have already figured out, and it's city by city, county by county. For example, in Cleveland, I didn't know there was something called a point of sale, right? Well, it's important, and discrimination laws, and when you're dealing with Section 8, it's a whole different ball game, county by county. And so you have companies like mine that have boots on the ground. They know the local laws. So why have gray hair? Why kill your brain?
Or no hair like us.
Exactly. Yeah. So for a lot of people, look, if your full-time job is fixing home and you're a professional contractor, that's different, right? But if you're a professional, like a white collar, you're a nurse, you're a dental assistant, you are a teacher, you're a firefighter, whatever, and you have a good paying job and you have a family and you want to spend time, then a turnkey is the best way to go. Look at all the help you're providing them. Help with the loan, help with the appraisal, help with the inspections. You don't have to travel. You can travel out there if you want to go look at it. By the way, for all the turnkey properties that I own, I've never set foot in any of them.
No need. It's a mathematical. All it is a mathematical equation. It's an inanimate object. If you look at it that way, it's a business. Yep. It runs on its own. It's got its own P&L statement. It's got its own laws, regulations, and that's how it should be. And you are the CEO of the company. Yep. The property management and everything else is the operating system. Yep. Now, let me ask you this, just so people understand turnkey. Like, what would you say is? And I know this is very. I'll blanket this by saying it's obviously results may vary, right? But what is an average price range of let's just say of an average turnkey, and what kind of returns should somebody in general, if you were to range it, that they should plan to expect for one?
Yeah. So the ones that I've had the most luck with are between 100 and 180,000. Depends on the area, depends on where, and
right.
But these are typically B minus properties. I love B minus properties. Now I do own some Section 8, but we won't go there. That's a whole different ball game.
Different
Uh,
business model.
there's a different business model, but I like white collar, middle income families. People that have 2 or 3 kids,
Yeah.
um, and they just want to raise the tenants just want to raise the kids in a good place. So B minus, 100 to 180, maybe in some places it could be $200,000, but that's my sweet spot.
Okay. And what kind of ROI, like what kind of return should somebody expect?
I think double digits, if they're
Okay.
not getting double digits, but keep in mind, people measure that in a lot of different ways, right?
Yeah, that I guess that's a very tough thing because it depends on what you put down and all that. Like I have some friends here that have a turnkey operation in Houston. They normally project about an 8% return, but they build the houses brand new. They normally they build duplexes. They're completely brand new, so they say your maintenance costs are less.
Yep.
You've got warranties on the property, so they say yeah, so your return is going to be less, but you're not going to have any problems with the property. So it's a again, it's all subjective. It's like, what do you want to buy?
Yep.
You can get a great deal for $50,000 and on paper have a great ROI, but have a very high tenant turnover, high maintenance costs. So, you can slice those numbers, as you said, any way you want to,
Yeah. No, look, for new construction, you're going to pay a premium, but your maintenance costs will be lower, and it's going to be a more desirable property for tenants. So you're going to attract tenants a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I would say, yes, there's a premium on new construction, but usually the properties that I'm invested in, and I think I've seen some of the mine properties, they're between 20 to 30 years old. But they're completely fixed up, right?
Yeah.
Like all the major mechanicals are taken care of. The advantage is you go through an inspection, you go through a proper appraisal, so there's no surprises.
Right.
But as far as ROI calculations, you look at maybe some projected appreciation. You look at your principal pay down. You look at the depreciation benefits, so tax benefits. You look at some write-offs. So when you factor all that in, I think it's very easy to achieve, the teens or low teens, or 10-12% returns on your money, which is so much better than your checking account, right? So
Yeah.
and
And on top of that, what I think people need to realize is if you do that for stock, you're buying stock, you're buying air. This you're actually you're getting an asset that someone is paying the debt down for you. You can loan against that asset. You can do all these things, but you still actually own the asset. So that's what I think people understand. They say, oh, like 10% is not that good. Like, well, you have someone actually paying the mortgage down for you.
Yep.
You own the property that's going up in value and appreciating in time, which is not even factored into this conversation or the equation, but you're getting appreciation of the asset. You're getting all these things that you're getting a tax depreciation of the asset, which you don't get when you buy stock. So when you really factor in, it's not just it's not just 10%, right? When you factor in all the benefits you're getting, it's I don't even know how you factor in all these variables. I'm sure there's a math computation for that, but it's huge. Now, I have a question for you though. You mentioned something that I think is important when it comes to vacancy time.
Yeah.
How would you say a turnkey, does that actually help with limited vacancy, or does it not matter?
Oh, no, it definitely helps, right? So when you have a professional property management company that they already have tenants lined up. They have a database, right? They're always building their database of prospective tenants. You don't like this property? Well, I got another one for you, and so they're already marketing. They've already got it figured out. So a good property management company, in case you have a vacancy, they've got somebody lined up for to fill in that vacancy very quickly, versus you yourself, where you got a vacancy. Well, now do you go find a new property manager? Do you fly yourself out there? Do you do your own turnover? Do you do you know if you just lose 2 months because you try to do it yourself, you've lost all of your whole year's, maybe a big portion of your cash flow. But if you had a professional and the tenant gave notice, the professional property management company is like, okay, no problem. They start marketing that property already. They've got somebody lined up. They know that it's going to take them 15 days to do a turnover, paint, whatever, touch up, clean out the carpet, etc. But they've got somebody lined up for you very quickly. So I say, and look, Steve, the most important thing is screening the tenants, right?
Oh, yeah.
Most people, if you're a nurse, you're a teacher, you're a programmer, you don't know how to screen tenants. Come on,
It's not your world. Yeah, I
right?
agree.
But a professional property management company knows, hey, give me your credit, work history, criminal record, whatever it is, whatever's allowed. They know what questions to ask. So I think in that sense, again, a huge advantage.
Yeah, I think it's funny because, when I owned my property management company, and we'd have a lot of owners that wanted to be involved in the selection process, which, believe it or not, is actually not allowed. It's not legal because, what people don't realize is if someone is a resident, and Bobby, you own the property, the resident is authorizing me per their Fair Credit Act to see their credit.
Yep.
They're not authorizing Bobby.
No.
If Bobby makes a decision saying, oh, I don't like this person had a smudge on their credit 5 years ago, well, that could be discriminatory.
Yes.
And it could be a fair housing violation. And so when we get owners that would want to be involved, I would say, okay, well, have you taken a fair housing class?
Yep.
You know, the 7 discrimination, protected classes.
Yep.
They don't know that. And I said, well, why do you feel that you're educated? And they say, well, I own the house. You own the structure. We own the business that's running inside of it. This is what we do. And it's not only what you can ask, but what you cannot ask, the questions. And you and I know both, Oakland, California, they've got rules now that you cannot do a criminal background check on them. Maybe never have owned in Oakland, California, and you start asking them questions that is a violation of their rights. You just opened up a lot bigger problems of not having a application process, a screening process. Again, like you said, why would you want to operate on your own appendix? Hire the doctor, right? So that's where this comes in. Let me ask you, Bobby, like, if I was thinking of turnkey or not turnkey, like, how would I weigh the pros and cons of whether I should or shouldn't? Like, what, like, is a what would that be? Let's say you're not a CEO. Let's say you're someone who works, you've got a job, you have a family.
Yeah.
Who would that, why should I, why shouldn't I?
So I think a lot of people, because of, so many websites promoting real estate, they're just curious to experiment on their own. They've attended some meetup, or they've attended some seminar, and they're like, I'm going to go do a BRRRR strategy because somebody wrote an amazing book about it. And I'm like, yeah, but if you look at all the steps that you have to go through, unless you're a full-time professional, that's all you do.
Yes.
You're going to run into some really, and you look in the real estate business, especially some of the people you're buying from. I won't, like some of the wholesalers, they don't have the ethical standards.
Right. They're not licensed. They're not. There's no state requirement that they have to abide by. Nothing. It's buyer beware.
Buyer beware. So a lot of people go, I'm going to go find a wholesaler, and I'm going to go find a deal. Well, it may work, it may not work. And I'm a professional real estate investor, and I've been burned. And
Me too.
Yeah. So look, they're transactional. They're in it for a very quick sale. But when you have a company like mine, or you're working with a professional real estate broker agent, they have a license, they have a code of ethics that they have to abide by. So you get disclosures, you get all kinds of information that some of these unlicensed folks may not provide, right? So in my opinion, back to your question, like, I think a lot of people, because they've seen HGTV, they're just curious, and I think they try it out. They realize, in fact, I'm one of them. I've tried it, and I'm like, you know what, this is it was okay. The stress level, I was doing rehabs in Huntsville, Alabama, in St. Louis. Very painful. In hindsight, I should have just gone to mine, put in, literally like Amazon checkout, right? And then I would have had, I would have done more deals. I would have had more cash streams of cash flow. But back to your question, I think a lot of people, they try it, then they realize the challenges, then they go, you know what, I'm just going to do turnkey properties. I'm one of them, and I'm a big believer in turnkey properties.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm a big believer, as you had said, when you get involved in real estate and you want that as a passive income, you're not doing it to have a second or third job. And for some reason, when we think about real estate or money, right, investing or money, that's something that all of a sudden our ego and our pride jump in, and we don't want to look dumb. We don't want to look foolish. We don't want to seem like we're beginners. So we think that we should do it ourselves.
Yep.
And we don't understand that real estate is not a solo sport. It is a team concept. And, the two biggest challenges I think everyone in real estate or any venture is going to come up against is knowledge and time. You only have so many hours in the day, and you only know what you currently know. And what got you here in life or investing or whatever is not going to get you here. And so I think that when you're dealing with turnkey and you're dealing with people, that like you said it best is, when you're dealing with a wholesaler, and look, I've bought properties from wholesalers, and I've had great experiences, and I've had some that are not so great. And at the end of the day, it's on me, right? Because they, as you said, they're transactional. When you're dealing with a turnkey, to me, that's relationship, because they only work off of you coming back and buying more.
Exactly.
It doesn't work by you buying one and going away. And reality is you and I both know you are not going to build your wealth or your net worth on one piece of real estate. Real estate only works in volume, which means you have to buy multiple properties to achieve the goals and the dreams that you and I both know is what it takes to achieve that. And I think that's, in a nutshell, I would say that's what turnkey does. They're giving you the vehicle to build your wealth by multiples without having to hunt and peck and have all these weird anomalies that happen where there's a title issue. Oh, this wall, who put this wall here? Now, as you and I both know, are very common. And with turnkey, it's turnkey. I mean, it's tip to tip where you are getting everything you need. I mean, that's my summarization of
it. 100%, 100%. Like look, it is all done for you. It's giving you ultimately, what is our goal in life? Our goal in life is to have financial security and to build a stream of income to supplement for maybe, like in my case, I had a layoff, right? So now I had to figure out ways of saying, okay, in future, I never want to be surprised, right? I don't want my income to be single source income. I need, Robert Kiyosaki, multiple streams of income. So like that, people, if you're a professional, you have your day job, but you start, stair stepping into rental properties. So save up some money. When you have enough saved up and you like a certain area, whether it's Houston, whatever, Kansas City, doesn't matter, then you go buy another one. And like you said, and I'm a firm believer in this, you cannot just buy one or two rental properties. It doesn't have that much of an impact. But when you're up to 20, 30 properties, I'm so proud. I just got a text message from a friend of mine. He's like, hey, I've got 10, between me and the wife, we have 20 rental properties. We need a portfolio loan, so I'm like, but I knew him, he used to come to my meetups 4 or 5 years ago, and he was just starting out, but him and the wife have great jobs, but they bought, and now they're up to 20 properties. Well, now that's serious money, right? So that's what you should be striving for. You stair step into
Yep.
increasing your cash flow.
Yeah. No, that's great. And again, one of the things I think people need to realize is, again, I go back to nobody wants to look dumb, so they want to hit this home run right out of the gate. And the problem is it just doesn't work that way. And so what ends up happening is nothing happens. You don't accomplish anything, and then you're like, oh, I can't find a deal. Look, you and I both know, Bobby, there's deals out there every single day that cross our plate. Whether we notice them, deal with them, and accept that, it's another story. But the deals are there. How we approach them and what we do, I think, is a bigger thing. So I think it's great. I think Turnkey is awesome, and I think what you do and how you help so many people, I think it's fantastic. And I think more people need to understand. And like a lot of things, right? Sometimes these things get tainted, like wholesalers. You get some bad people and it's tainted. But I know many people who've been very successful.
Very successful.
Turnkey because it just works for them. You as well, and you've provided a great service for people that I really think they need to understand that you trust but verify. You look at the numbers and you verify the numbers, right? And I think that when people say they were taken advantage of, I think what they're really saying is they were lazy, they didn't verify numbers and information, and now they're upset about it and they want someone to blame instead of taking ownership and accountability for the fact that they should have known better and done the right steps, but they chose not to.
Absolutely. That's 100% correct. Look, yes, you nailed it. Look, we give you all the tools. Mind, you're doing so many webinars. You're doing there's all these meetups. You can go get the education. It doesn't cost that much to become better educated. You shouldn't just blindly go buy something. But yes, like you said, trust but verify.
Yeah.
And if you do that, the numbers, they're published, they're online, they're standing behind those numbers. Then you can go in and make that purchase, right? And again, this is not like day trading stocks, right? This is you're building your wealth for your retirement. It's a 20-year game. Like somebody asked me recently, when do you plan to sell your properties? And I'm like, never, because that's what I bought them for. Whether my return on investment is this much or that much, I don't care. Each one generates a certain amount of cash flow. And my goal is to build more streams of income. That's it.
It's simple. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Many people want to overcomplicate this. You don't need to. Like, just it's the Monopoly game, right? Like Robert Kiyosaki, like you said, it's again, I think a lot of people, they try to overcomplicate it because they just say it can't be that simple. You can't just own these properties for 30 years. It's like, it really is. It really, you can call it something else and put a fancy acronym on it. Like you said, house hacking and all that, or the 1% rule. But at the end of the day, you provide housing for people to live. People pay for that. That's pretty much how it works. At the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, you could have bought literally, you could have bought anything off the MLS or anything off of mine.com and held it for the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years. You would have been fine. You could have thrown a dart at any city that there was a turnkey property in. And if you had just hung on to it for 5, 6, 7 years, you would have done just fine.
Yeah.
You didn't. Yeah.
And I think that, with everything going on right now, I don't know what your thoughts, but I'm a firm believer that in the next 12 to 18 months, I think just like in 2008, 2010, there will be more wealth created in that time frame than in the last decade. I think that there's going to be, there is going to be some serious wealth created by the people. Somebody said it best. They said, I feel like right now there's a frenzy going on, and it's almost like the grand finale of the fireworks show.
Yep.
Everybody's just going crazy, and it's going to go dark. And then I added to that, I said, and you know what happens when it goes dark? I said, people like myself, people like Bobby, put on our night vision goggles, and then we go hunting for the deals that we want because we know what we want. We're taking action, and we're just waiting. You're just sitting back, waiting, and saying, you know what? There's no race. This happened before. It'll happen again. And I'm just doing what I do. Non-emotional.
I love that analogy, Steve. I love it because it is the grand finale of the fireworks and I can feel it. I'm looking at all the the post and people are going crazy, but it's coming. We know it's coming. Yes, I love your analogy, but that's exactly how I feel. So get some dry powder ready, and start planning, start getting educated, but start getting ready to pull the trigger because it's going to be a buying opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, Bobby, man, I love talking to you always. You're such an inspiration for me and other people.
Likewise.
If somebody, wants to get a hold of you, they want to talk to you about Turnkey, and I know you've got so many things that you're doing. It's not just in the Bay Area. Like you said, you're all over. How do they find you and learn more about you?
So I've just launched a new sort of a real estate startup website. It allows you to track your assets and how the assets are performing. So it's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet on steroids, but you can, if you bought a property, you can track it. But real quick. It's called bettercapital.us. So bettercapital.us, and my email is very simple: Bobby, Bobby @bettercapital.us.
Awesome. And if they social media, I know you're on Facebook and Instagram. Do you have any handles for people if they want to follow you there?
Just look for Bobby Sharma on Facebook. I don't remember my handles now, but
I know I don't know them either. Just look, you'll find you. So I'm sure if they go to your website and other things. So bettercapital.us, Bobby Sharma, and I know you can find him on Facebook because you and I are friends on Facebook. Bobby, again, man, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. You're always such a wealth of information, especially right now. I think people understanding and learning more about Turnkey is definitely something they need to understand and consider, because it is a very, very viable option and going to be more viable as time goes on. For those of you, again, Mind Property Management, I want to thank them for allowing us to even do this show. Mind is in 19 investable markets across the country. So whether you're looking in Seattle, Washington, San Diego, Houston, Texas, Las Vegas, Tampa, Atlanta, Mind is there. They've got boots on the ground. They have offices. So if you want a partner that has proprietary software, state-of-the-art technology, Mind is the property management company you want to talk to. You can go to the website. It's MYND. So it's Mind, MYND.co. So it's mind.co. You go there and talk to them, whether it's helping you find a property to buy, have assets, or just have a conversation. That's where you want to go. So everybody, on behalf of Bobby, myself, and Mind Property Management, thank you for watching The Mindful Investor, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.